Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the postgame pod following the OU BYU game. I stuttered and the team stuttered quite a bit. The Sooners win 31-24, but it was not the game we expected. It's not the game that we wanted to see. We wanted to see something that was relaxing and enjoyable, and we got a high-stress affair. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
We are here outside enjoying some wonderful cigars from Tobacco Exchange, our post-game sponsor. Remind you to go to one of their 3 convenient locations throughout the metro area: Moore, Edmond, Oklahoma City. I was up at their Edmond store for the Liga Privada event last night, and it was wonderful. They had all kinds of great items on sale, and at least through this morning, they still had some inventory available, so I don't know if that sale is still available. If anyone wants to run up there on Sunday and take advantage of that, I would certainly encourage it. So what are we smoking tonight, Lucas?
Tonight we're smoking an Espinosa Crema, and it's a Nicaraguan. It's pretty mellow, but we actually smoked cigars earlier during the Oklahoma State game, so as a second cigar, this is really hitting the spot.
Yeah, very nice.
Good smoke for sure.
Thanks to Tobacco Exchange. Well, the Sooners win, and it was what I would call, and I'm stealing this line from Lucas, I'm going to go ahead and say that because he's going to claim it anyway, a Jekyll and Hyde affair. And that really is true of both the offense and the defense, but especially the offense, where we just saw helter-skelter of good and bad. Things would start working and be very successful. Then all of a sudden we'd go away from that and we'd have just a pathetically bad series. Very, very frustrating to see that happen. We're going to talk a lot about the defense and criticize the defense quite a bit, so we can get into that. We'll definitely be talking about the fact that Dylan Gabriel went out with what appears to be a concussion. Jackson Arnold came in and finished the game. We have some good and bad to say about that as well. So let me turn it over to you guys and see what are your takeaways right away out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jekyll and Hyde's a really good way to put it. So well done to both of you, Steve for saying it, and Lucas for thinking it, I guess. No, I it's just frustrating. We can be happy about the win, and I know a lot of fans will say, a win is a win, but to go out and perform the way we did today after what we saw last week, putting together our best performance of the season last week and maybe over the tenure of this staff since BV came in, and then to go out today and see a bunch of the same stuff that has gotten us beat in the past and has just led to these close, stressful games that we shouldn't be in. There's no reason we should be stressed out late in the fourth quarter against this BYU team. There's just no excuse for it. Our defense looked like something from the Grinch years, getting ran all over. I mean, it was a poor performance all around, I would say. So frustrating. I'm very happy we got out with a win. This podcast will be a lot more gloomy and miserable should we have lost today. But at the same time, those performances like that are not going to get you to the level that you want to be come next year in the SEC.
I'm disappointed that we thought the offense would be better than it was after last week's game. I mean, we talked about it. Jay specifically said on the pod that he hasn't put together back-to-back good offensive games, play calling, since he's been here. Levy, obviously. Even though Gabriel got hurt, you put in a true freshman who doesn't have hardly any time, which we talked about earlier, because we weren't pulling away from teams and finishing them off where he would get more opportunity to come in and actually get some game time outside of, was Tulsa the last game? Mm-hmm. So that's sad in and of itself. Or maybe did he get in Iowa State?
One of those games was his fourth game.
It was his fourth game.
He got in for a play that he didn't end up playing. Maybe that was against Iowa State. Did he play against Cincinnati? I can't remember.
No, I don't think he played against Cincinnati.
Okay.
So anyway, it was throwing him into the fire against what, in all accounts beforehand, was a horrible defense. Again, for like the fourth week in a row, we've played these defenses in the Big 12 that are past the 100 mark in total team defense for the NCAA. And again, we couldn't capitalize. And then the defense, Stutzman apparently had food poisoning.
And the flu, I guess.
And possibly the flu. I don't know which it all depends.
He was ill.
He was ill, but they did what we wanted to see. They moved him back to the Mike linebacker and put Kip Lewis in, which we thought was the combination that would really solidify the defense. And it turned out to where all of them were missing their gaps. The linebackers, to me, played horribly today.
Their worst performance of the year by far.
The defensive line, no push most of the game. The secondary was soft that we've seen a lot of times in coverage. Thankfully, Billy Bowman with the 100-yard interception for a touchdown essentially was the Jekyll and Hyde part of the defense that really won us the game. If you look at it, it was 7 points and we win by 7. But they also gave up 24 to a team that it had been scoring 8 points, 13 points, 6 points in conference. They were a joke, and they only averaged 18 points a game in conference, and they scored 24 on us and made the defense look very bad a lot of the game.
And I think something to tack onto that is everyone, even myself in the past, I'm like, OU's going to get everyone's best shot no matter what. At some point, that can't be the line. At some point, yes, we are going to get everybody's best shot. That's no excuse not to go put someone away.
Well, they can't just dial up best shot either.
Right, yeah.
You can't just decide I'm going to play my best game.
Right?
You don't decide at the first of the season, all right, which of these games are you going to play the perfect game?
Yep.
And it's going to be the OU game. It doesn't work like that. So I've got several things to check off here that are all coaching related, and I'm going to tie them together. But we can expand on any of these after I get through my little list here. The first thing is that Brent Venables apparently, obviously, at least empirical evidence, struggles on the road. He has struggled on the road with his teams through now almost 2 full seasons. Yes, we're better, but it's concerning that we can't seem to get it together and do what we need to do, be disciplined, minimize penalties, control the game when we're on the road. Not in any particular order, but a number of things. I guess to start with offense, it's gimmicky. It's still gimmicky. We're still doing gimmicky stuff. One of the things that's gimmicky that I just can't wrap my hand around is why do we have now, in this case, Stoops lining up as a running back? This was 126th ranked rushing defense in the country that we faced today. And we had tremendous success when we had a traditional running back running. I think he averaged like 7 yards a carry or something.
Yeah, I think it was like 7.6 or something
But he
that.
only got like 14 carries.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Yes.
You got Stoops lining up as a running back repeatedly. It's not working. It shouldn't work. It doesn't make sense. Switching to defense, my note changed as the game went on. I have defense lost the first half, then through the third quarter, and then really through the entire game. They were losing throughout the entire game to an offense in BYU that is not good. They are not a good offense. They are a very bad offense. They got an interception, a pick six, for a 100-yard return. Keep in mind, they're a 100-yard return because they had allowed them to come down deep into the red zone right before they throw that interception. So they're in scoring position. That's basically a 14-point swing probably there. Very frustrating.
If we don't get that real quick, get that interception, BYU takes the lead with Jackson Arnold coming in as a true freshman, trying to not only win the game but come back. Mm-hmm. There's no telling what happens if that interception doesn't happen.
So then, 2 things, I guess one more thing on offense. We still cannot figure out when to snap the ball when we're trying to drain clock. We did a better job today. We're still snapping the ball with 10 seconds on the clock, even when we're doing a deliberate don't get to the line of scrimmage. You should snap the ball with about 3 seconds left.
I don't understand
repeatedly
that. It's just there's no logic to it.
No.
I guess there's no rhyme or reason. I do, especially like you just said, when you're blatantly delaying getting to the line. What is the reason to go get to the line with 15 seconds left so you can snap it with 10 seconds?
I agree.
It's just crazy.
Another item: special teams missed a field goal badly. Kicked the ball out of bounds on a kickoff. Another bad call. Your altitude. Kick the ball down the center. You're probably going to drive it out of the end zone or get it pretty deep.
Gavin Freeman.
Gavin Freeman is not the answer at punt return. They've got to give up on that. He's not sure-handed enough, and he doesn't make good decisions. And last, Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold, they made a big deal this week about how he was coming back going to not burn his red shirt, which to me, the mistake was made by not playing him throughout the season to get him experience, because lo and behold, one injury later, he has to burn his red shirt. And I know you could have said, well, you didn't expect an injury, but you don't expect an injury, but you want to be prepared if one happens. And so here again, we see Lebby not prepared with a backup quarterback. He'd be prepared if we had given him true game experience in meaningful snaps throughout the season, to where he has his feet under him more surely. And he played really well, all things considered. I don't blame him at all. I think he played really, really well. But he didn't look as crisp as I think he could have if he would have had more experience, and we wouldn't have had some pipe dream of keeping his redshirt freshman year alive for, I don't understand the cost-benefit analysis on that. So that's sort of my realist rant on several items, all related to coaching. What do you guys have to say to expand on any of that stuff?
I don't know that you can say Jackson Arnold played really well. I think situationally coming in, he probably knew at halftime that he was coming in. So to me, Lebby should have been huddled over in a corner with him, going over which plays worked the best, what he feels the most comfortable with. And we came out, and it was the same junk offense we've seen all season for the most part, outside of a couple of the bulldozer-style runs that he had 8 carries for 24 yards, but had a long of 15, which was a great run. I don't know that you have to do more than that, because you don't want to get him hurt and then you're really screwed. But it also was back to sideways passing. Nothing really intermediate except for the third down conversions he made that
he audibled on.
Yeah, that he looked good on. Well, the audible came on the final play, on the one that sealed the game.
And a great throw.
He missed Nick Anderson on a deep ball, which
Yeah.
I like that call. I think he just had a little too much adrenaline.
And why does he have too much adrenaline? Among other reasons, he's inexperienced.
Yeah, because he hadn't had a chance to be on the field much this season. It was kind of the similar ball that he threw at Tulsa to Nick Anderson on the opposite sideline.
But he was so wide open
he
today.
He just overthrew him by a few too many yards. That would have been epic, because that would have gave us a 2-touchdown lead with, what was that, 5 minutes ago, probably something like that.
And there wasn't a lot of like rhythm establishment either. It's like, in my mind, I think you establish rhythm with 4 or 5 yard routes, like sit downs. It's not the sideways passes with no one defending or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's throwing the ball vertically down the field, even if it's for short yardage, to get you in a zone, and we didn't see that. So I mean, it's almost like the rhythm wasn't established. So Lebby said, "We're gonna be running a lot with you, and that needs to work."
And they also didn't use Drake anywhere near as much this game. He ended up with, I think, 4 catches for 63 yards, and a lot of it was on the first drive. Stogner had a big third down catch in the first half. Never went back to him the rest of the game.
Underutilized after a week where we
bragged
saw
so
him
much
used.
on how good of a job they did using him over the middle last week to set up everything else, especially the run game. And then you throw it to him one time on a third down, and then you don't go back to it. And then Sawchuk had 22 carries last week. This week he has 14 for 7.6 a carry.
And Walker had another 6, maybe?
Walker had 5 and averaged 5 yards a carry. So your 2 running backs, one averaged 5 yards a carry, and the other averaged 7.6. And you just didn't run the ball enough.
Yeah, and that's just like if you're a basketball team and you've got a guy who's shooting 60% from three-point range, the answer is have him shoot the ball more.
Yeah.
Feed him the ball.
Feed him the ball. And yeah, that average is going to fall down but he's still getting production. And if you look at the course of this game, it's almost the kind of game you'd have in a championship type of environment where you're going up against a very, very, very good opponent, and you can't go back to the well over and over again. They go away from things that are working as if they're jinxed or something.
You know what helps an
disturbing.
inexperienced quarterback coming in the game?
What's that?
The run game. Not that you have to come
the
out,
wide
hand it
receiver
off
run
first
game?
down, second down, and then you're behind the sticks, but mixing it in there where you get him comfortable, even just taking snaps with a crowd.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
I don't think the stands were full. I looked on SeatGeek before the game.
No.
You could have bought tickets for $17, shockingly. But it was still a pretty loud crowd on TV. And,
It's a rough environment,
and to
unfamiliar
get you comfortable,
environment.
it's not the sideways passes. It's run the ball and maybe some intermediate 8 to 10 yard throws.
So I think those are great points, and it's just showing you yet again we're leaving potential that we have on the field, leaving points on the field, letting opponents stick around in games. It has already cost us a couple times this season. It could have easily cost us today. Very frustrating. A lot to criticize and work on, but it's late in the game or late in the season to be doing that. I don't know. It's very frustrating, and all of it has got to be a negative reflection on this coaching staff at one level or another. They've got to get better. They've got to get a lot better. We circle back to Lebby. This is kind of a regression quickly back to the mean of who he is. My question would be, is Dylan Gabriel going to come back to college and follow Lebby to his next job? What do you guys think about that?
And it's something we were talking about, the possibility of Dylan coming back in the midweek, and I think that if he comes back, it's not going to be at OU, but if Jeff Lebby leaves, it works beneficially for both of those guys. One of you guys said it during the game when we were discussing it. Dylan isn't going to want to come back to a different team and learn a new system. So what's the best answer? Hey, Jeff, you want me to come and be your quarterback and have one more year together? So I think it's in the realm of small possibilities that we're talking about. It's a strong small possibility, if that makes sense.
That's good.
So,
The offense scored 24 points against a defense that was horrible.
Absolutely horrible. That was one of the low performances in terms of points that they've given up all year. It was by far the most points they've scored in the Big 12. Maybe the most points they scored all year.
I think they scored 27 against Tech.
They scored 27 against Tech.
But still,
Texas Tech. Okay.
Yeah.
No, they scored 35 against Cincinnati.
Okay.
Another pretty poor
27
team.
at Kansas. But Kansas scored 38. Cincy's 27. TCU scored 44. Texas scored 35. West Virginia scored 37. Iowa State scored 45 on them. And here we are, 31, with 7 of that being a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like it, Steve, what you brought up earlier in the pod, or right off the bat, with playing on the road and not playing well. Jeff Lebby looks like he has 2 different playbooks. He has a home playbook and a road playbook.
Yeah.
And it's just, what we saw today is a night and day difference from what we saw. I know from the get-go, he was trying to throw the ball down the field and get guys open down the field. But that also came at the cost of not running the ball as much with Gavin when he is touching the ball. He's averaging 7.6 yards a carry. Feed the guy. And if it starts not working, then throw the ball. But
the blocking was there.
He doesn't know how to
today.
balance it. It's just so odd.
Sexton started at right tackle because I guess Guyton's still out.
Yep.
He was suited up on the sideline, but Sexton looked like a road grader out there when we were ran the ball. I think he got beat on a pass protection a time or two, but running the ball on the right side looked way better, and Sawchuk's vision looked back to normal.
Really good. Yeah.
And let's just go away from it completely. It makes perfect sense.
It was so frustrating, and it does come back to what we've been criticizing about Lebby, about he cannot sequence drives. He seemingly can't sequence a game plan within drives of what he wants to accomplish. And it's like he's not looking at the defense. It's like he's not looking at what has been working and what has worked with other teams against the team he's playing. They're not throwing, I don't know this for a fact, but I'll wager big money. They're not throwing something radically different at us defensively than what we otherwise are seeing on a very regular basis with all the game film that BYU put out so far this year.
And that's the thing, too, is early in the game, it looked like they were dropping into coverage a lot more, and Dylan wasn't making decisions or wasn't able to execute the reads. At that point, start running the ball more. It's just, if we as fans can see stuff like that, I know I'm no college caliber coach, but it doesn't look right. What we're seeing does not look correct.
It's not that complicated either.
So
it's pretty straightforward math.
Disjointed.
It's when they're overloading the box, you throw. when they're dropping back into coverage, you run, all else equal, at least to a high degree, and they're not doing that. So that's just a big problem. And then we talk about the thing we always like to come back to in terms of complementary football. We did not play complementary defense today because other than some turnovers that went our way that we scored 21 points off of, including one that we actually took to the house, we were giving up big yardage, big drives, and not like busted plays, just productive yardage in time after time after time, which puts your offense in a difficult position on the road because they know they have to score.
Yep.
And can't have a lot of confidence in what you're doing, and you're not getting stops. And then you're out there for long spans of time, which is also really problematic. So
I mean, we even saw it after the pick six. I mean, our defense looked gassed because they're right back out there, and BYU goes right back down the field and scores a touchdown. So, I mean, it's just, it was not complimentary at all.
very frustrating. If you're going to get blessed with the opportunity to get into the Big 12 title game, which requires obviously a loss by a team. One of them is playing for us right now, Texas. You're going to have to play better than this if you play anybody in that game, and especially if you face Texas. So you've got to get your act together. Now, it'll be interesting to see as we come into the week and we look at what Dylan Gabriel's situation is. If Jackson Arnold, which I think we would expect if it's a concussion, Jackson Arnold's going to be the starter and going to play the entirety of the game against TCU on here a short week of practice. That really is going to tell you a lot about how competitive we're going to be. It'll be interesting to see. I think Jackson Arnold's ceiling is very high right now, though his floor is below Dylan Gabriel's because he hasn't played much. I don't think that was the case 6 games ago. But now it's more of a concern, and you've got to think he doesn't know the offense well enough to know all of the things that we want to do. Then again, I don't know if our offense...
all the things we want to do?
Yeah,
We've
exactly,
gone the entire season
exactly.
wondering where all of those things are, and they're not there. It's the same crap over and over.
Well, there's left and right jet sweeps.
Yeah.
So those rhythm issues are going to be a question. You've got the timing with your snap and the offensive line, little things like that we've got a week to work that out if that's the case. Now, this is going to be a real test of their ability to get a quarterback ready to play, which has been one of the knocks we've had about Levy for the entirety of his career, going back, of course, to that really painful experience in the Cotton Bowl, where he obviously didn't have a backup quarterback ready to go last year. That's a concern. Now, I guess what we'll see is Dylan Gabriel will go through warm-ups against TCU and then take the shoulder pads off for the rest of the game, and that'll really get TCU rattled. They won't know what to think about that. I have a lot of faith that Jackson Arnold can do what it takes to succeed against TCU. Now, TCU is one of the best passing defenses and the best passing offenses in the conference. They had a blowout monster game today, at least passing the ball. Tremendous numbers they put up. So that's a concern for us in terms of getting beat down the field and them able to have more production potentially than what we've seen out of the last couple of teams. At least statistically, they're better than them. So hopefully we can get it turned around defensively to stop that. What are you guys' confidence level? What is your feel for it right now?
In terms of Dylan playing this week or next week?
You can. I wasn't asking that, but that's an interesting question. So answer that, and in terms of just the team's ability to put a full game together at home for the season finale.
I mean, first question, I guess to my confidence that Dylan will play, I'd say 60%. Venables downplayed the injury pretty heavily in the press conference, so I don't know if that's just for the sake of doing it, or if he said Dylan should be back, quote unquote, pretty quick. So, again, I don't know how much of that. We know OU's doctors take concussions extremely seriously. So if it is a concussion, I don't care about the degree, especially on a short week like this. I don't see how he could play, but I'm saying 60%.
Especially with his history.
Yeah, with his history.
He got a concussion last year and missed the Texas game.
Yeah, so this is at least his second
he had
concussion if it's a concussion.
Texas Tech,
Reggie Pearson hits him on and knocks him out of that game. So, they the doctors say with concussions, once you get your first one, you're more prone to get them. And now this could be his third in less than two, and really a full season because it was the middle of last season.
Right.
So a season and a half. He's
Not
on
even
his
that,
possible third concussion.
About 13 months.
And at this point, like I said, our doctors have always been super careful with that, going as far to tell players to retire, like Grant Calcaterra.
Which
we
remind
had
me, what's he
offensive
doing
linemen.
now? What's Grant doing now?
I think he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, okay. He's still playing football.
Weird.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
All right.
He's
So-
not firefighting in California?
No,
Okay.
no.
Sorry.
Went-
I just wanted to make
decided
sure
to go to
that the whole
SMU and
retirement
prove that he
thing-
could play without having concussion issues, and then magically he plays in the NFL. We had an offensive lineman retire. We had a defensive back that retired early. It ended up becoming a coach. I can't remember who that was.
What, Brendan Walker? It was, I think it was the kid from
It was a
McGinnis.
safety. I can't remember. Anyway, so
Yeah,
we've
we'll see.
shown that more than likely, I would say there's about a 35% chance he plays.
Yeah.
And like you said, on the short week, you're going to have to try to cram as much as you can. Jackson Arnold taking all the first team snaps. And hopefully you can tailor the game to what plays that he feels the most comfortable with, and but you're not going to be able to run him as much as you'd like to because of the backup situations.
So that relates to my other question, which is confidence going into that game. I can't have a whole lot of confidence in Levy to get him prepared, to get the game tailored to Jackson Arnold, at the same time to get that married up against what will work well against TCU. I think that's too much complexity to ask of Jeff Levy based on what we've seen from Jeff Levy.
Well,
now,
and
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you, Steve, actually. I mean, it's from an overall getting someone else prepared that's not been your number one guy all season or the last 2 years, really. Levy has shown that he is not good at that. So another maybe twist to it is if Arnold goes out and has a great week in practice, though, and Gabriel is, for whatever reason, a game-time decision, you don't put Gabriel in.
No.
Right? I mean,
Right.
you say, hey, Gabriel, get
Well, I
your
would think he
week of
wouldn't,
rest.
and that's actually another point of
So-
criticism I was going to mention in the coaching, and I forgot. With Stutzman playing, if Stutzman's really that bad and really hadn't eaten in 2 days, for whatever that means, maybe you don't play him.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily your best player at that position.
Venables said today he was surprised that Stutzman played.
I mean-
What the hell does that even mean? You're the head coach. Why are you surprised that he's playing?
Right, I
That's
should be
your
surprised.
decision.
And
Not
that's his
you.
position coach.
Yes.
Like he's the linebackers.
So
coach.
Right.
yeah,
Did he
it's
just say, "Are you
crazy.
good to go?" Yeah, coach. Every player's always going to tell you they're good to go.
yeah.
And that's supposedly your like you said, that's Venables' group.
Yeah.
And that has been one of our deeper positions that we have. Put someone else in there and let them practice the prior 2 days before the game to get them ready. There's no reason that
Well,
that should be up in the air.
Strength at linebacker, too.
Yeah.
And when
Exactly.
you watch that first half, Stutzman, whether he was sick or not, was missing the fits. So he was literally getting blocked out of the plays,
Yeah.
and the running backs were just going right up the gut. And I don't know if he was having brain farts that he should be in a different position because he's used to playing the Will this season instead of the Mike, and that was just throwing him off.
Vice
of
versa, right?
Where
He's
he
been
needed
playing
to
the
be.
mic, hasn't he?
No, he's playing the Will.
Oh, playing the Will? Okay.
Yeah, he moved from Mike to Will.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So, and then at some point we saw McKenzie and Lewis in there, but the first half it just looked horrible on defense.
Yeah, just join us.
So confidence in winning this next game is going to be low for me because it's not just the horrendous play calling of Levy. It's also I've lost some confidence in this defense's ability to do the thing we're best at, which is stop the run. Because the last couple weeks we have not stopped the run, and TCU threw it all around it. I think the guy had 400 yards passing, and for as soft a coverage with Gentry out specifically, that really Kenai Walker is doing his best, and that we saw Wagner out there making plays, but also,
Dolby had some
also
mistakes
missing
today.
plays. Dolby missed some tackles.
Missed
on
an assignment on a critical third down.
Yep. So my confidence in even not covering or anything, winning this game is low.
Yeah, I mean, it's lower than it should be for me. We'll probably be, what do you guys think, maybe a 2-touchdown favorite? You don't think so?
No.
What do you think?
I think it'll probably be 8. 8.5?
I bet it's about 12.5
So those are
to open. Maybe.
any of them are pretty stout numbers that you should win the football game, but we'll see what they actually are able to do. So I would say that whatever the line is, I have my doubts about us covering it, and that translates into doubts about actually winning the game. If Jackson Arnold has a really good week in practice, that's going to be a real critical decision that I don't have a lot of confidence they'll make the right one in terms of who should play. The thing you've got to think about is if the doctors clear you, that's one thing, and obviously that has to happen for Gabriel to play, but he also has to be in the right mindset to be able to play. It'll be an emotional game. It's potentially his last college football game, and he may be gun-shy after having a big hit that took him out of a game. I don't know. I think he suffered from being a little bit too conservative and fearful in quite a bit of his play throughout his OU career in one capacity or another. So all of that gives me doubts, and all of that gives me concern. I'd just like to see Jackson Arnold come out and be handed the ball, it's your game, and see what he can do. If we come up short, we come up short. Unless Dylan Gabriel is just 100% a go from Monday on. Otherwise, you can't be giving anyone but Jackson Arnold all of the snaps in practice,
all of the
right?
snaps. All of the snaps.
If there's any doubt, you've got to give him all the snaps. And so just developing the game plan with a guy who then takes it back over the starting job, if he wasn't in on all the game plan of actually executing the plays, how good can he possibly be in Dylan Gabriel if he doesn't practice with the ones throughout the game, throughout the week?
One thing we talked about beforehand was when I had a score in 41, I believe, I thought we would have a lot more possessions than our average, and we've been averaging 13 to 14 possessions per game. Today we had 10. Some of it was the defense didn't do what we expected, but also the offense just, again, no fluidity, no rhythm, except when we decided to run the ball. We could go right down the field, and then it was back to throwing it all over the place.
Now, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but on one of those drives, didn't we have tremendous success running the ball with big runs, chunk yardage, and more? And then all of a sudden we got stalled out and had to settle for a field goal.
Yeah, I think we had like two. Yeah, we had two big runs at the front end of that drive, and then, like you said, I think we got away from that and ended up stalling and settling.
You can't do that. You can't settle in a game like this. When it's a tight game and you're back and forth.
That may have been the missed field goal drive, actually.
Pre-snap penalties killed us again today. I don't understand why we're so bad on the offensive line with false starts.
Well, Steve and I were talking about that. I think that may be more of a Gabriel thing. I don't know, like Gabriel, and it's a lot more prevalent on the road.
It could be rain.
It could be rain. I don't know. But it was, especially in the front half of the game, in the first half, really bad. So I don't know. Yeah, and again, that goes right back to the coaching that we've been talking about.
What did we end up with on penalties today?
About 6.
Is that all?
I'm guessing.
We actually got a couple holding calls in our favor today.
6 for 45 for us, 7 for 55 for them. And how do you guys feel? I mean, officiating-wise, it wasn't
that bad, aside from a few things that were, why are they looking at that? Why are they reviewing that? They failed to review a couple things. One thing that we noted and that some friends noted, and I'm hearing about it, actually I think it was Teddy and Toby on the radio were talking about it, the spotting of the ball was very sloppy. They were spotting the ball very poor early in the game. That little stuff adds up to be something critically bad.
There was what should have been a targeting look at least. Was that on against Farouk?
Yeah, the ear hole. Yeah, where they looked at it to see if it was a fumble.
Yeah, it was.
But he clearly
caught the ball. If anything, it would have been an incomplete pass, but it wasn't. It was a completed pass.
He took 3 steps after, so
and then
it would have been a fumble, but he got.
Well, he's down, and down.
Yeah. He was down, but then it was also targeting at least.
Guy comes across the top of him and hits him right in the side of the helmet, knocks him out of the rest of that drive, which
should have been looked.
Yeah,
you should look at it. They didn't even look at it.
And we've said that multiple times this year, where look at everything if you're going to look at everything. We've seen some stuff that gets looked at that should not get looked at, and some of the stuff that doesn't, I don't understand.
They'd already stopped the play to look at the fumble.
Mm-hmm.
They could go ahead while they're looking at the fumble and look to see that he's getting hit in the head.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a reason that he caught the ball and then his butt hits the ground, and then he gets hit in the head, and you can see he kind of loses control of the ball as he's laying on his back because he just got smoked in the head.
And it was definitely face mask, at least, which is part of the helmet, into his helmet and into the ear hole. So I didn't understand that. So that brings up some other points of sort of stuff around the edges that were worth criticizing. The ESPN coverage was just sloppy. They were missing kickoffs repeatedly, coming back from commercial and cutting back from different takes. They had few and far between on replays, even though there was plenty of time to do the replays.
And they were showing the wrong replays.
They showed the wrong replays, and the announcers didn't seem to know the basics of what was happening in many cases, were just completely out to lunch on several comments that they made in critical situations. Like, they don't even know what obviously is going on in the game and what is of concern or what the officials are talking about or whatever.
There was one spot where they came back from a commercial and they started showing these graphics of BYU former quarterbacks. Meanwhile, the game is going on, so they put the game in a small box, and then they're still showing the graphics for these former BYU quarterbacks. Like, who gives a crap? We're trying to watch a football game. That's stuff that you do coming back from a commercial after a score and before a kickoff or something
when you
like
got
that.
plenty of time before the kickoff. They were squeezing an extra commercial in, I think,
and this
every
was
time.
ESPN, this wasn't the CW. I mean, what are they doing out there?
I don't know. It was definitely the B crew at best. And if you're going to do the picture-in-picture for that, do the picture-in-picture and show me a replay on critical things that were really interesting to know what happened there. We had one, I cannot remember what it was, but we thought it was worth reviewing, and they never reviewed it to see if they actually picked up a first down.
No, it was a touchdown. It was when their quarterback runs around is running down the sideline and dives for the end zone.
Yeah.
And it for all accounts looked like, from the very short cutoff replay that we saw, looked like he got in. BYU, instead of arguing it, goes and snaps the ball. So I mean, it benefits us in that scenario, but at the same time, it was something that I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm glad it didn't get reviewed.
I was thinking of one. That is a good one for us. One for us that may or may not have gone our way, but they didn't even begin to review it. I did not understand what was going on there, so I thought that was bad. The other thing was the slipping. That field was horrific.
It was a
today.
joke. That was a joke.
So again, get out of this conference. When we in Texas exit this conference, that will be the largest stadium in the conference. With 16 teams in the conference, a 62,000 seat stadium, am I right there? 65,000 seat stadium will be your largest stadium. And that field looked like something that was like a junior high in Idaho where they had a huge snowstorm and then it was mud season. It was ridiculous, the slipping. And it was not just OU players, it was BYU players as well. They did comment on that in the broadcast several times and showed the chunks of turf that were coming up. But that was really frustrating to see something like that. It affects the game in terms of just affecting the quality of the game. Obviously, it could be to one team's advantage or disadvantage as the randomness of the game transpires. So I thought that was a frustrating point. It's easy to get frustrated when you're in a frustrating game and look and find everything that is not up to the level and standard of what you'd like it to be. But I think these things are important. I want to get out of a conference where OU is on a broadcast with secondary broadcast quality in a secondary time slot, playing in a secondary stadium and a secondary quality field. We need to get back to excellence, and I think that's what we're going to get in the SEC, of course. But we're going to have to play better if we're going to be competitive in the SEC. Oklahoma State won today narrowly against Houston. Houston had a chance to be heroes for the Sooners, but they completely whiffed, just like Iowa State just whiffed on a field goal, and they're only tied with Texas 3-3. So Kansas is beating Kansas State 27-16. That helps, but only if one of the orange teams loses. So we need a loss from one of these orange games, and the options are slipping away one by one. If we can get into the title game, I'll go back to something we've talked about before to see if the answer's changed. Who do you guys want to play? I want to play Oklahoma State first and foremost.
Same.
Yep, I think so too.
I think Jay has the same answer as well. So, obviously, I'd take my shot against anybody we can. If we don't get into that game and we beat TCU, what's the bowl projection?
I think it's the Alamo.
Alamo, but would it be against USC at this point?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so
because they lost today.
USC loses again.
Yeah.
So I think
it's
it'd probably be if Oregon and Washington end up winning and playing each other, probably looking at Oregon State, I would think, in that game.
And that's a bit of a challenging game and a concerning game because I don't know if you get up for that game really strong, and Oregon State's going to have a lot to play for. That'd be a tough game. USC would be a game I think it'd be easy for us to get up for as a team and obviously as a fan base. Going to the Alamo Bowl is a bit of a disappointment. Playing an Oregon State team, I don't think that means a lot for us, and they look like a pretty salty team. I haven't seen what they're doing against Washington tonight so far, other than to see Washington scored early. So that's a concern. If it works out that way, that's of course getting us down the road. If we were to play and win in the Big 12 title, of course we're playing in a New Year's Day Bowl.
Oregon State is currently losing 22-10 against Washington.
Okay, so that probably keeps them in that position then for an Alamo Bowl berth. But turning back to USC, let me ask you guys, they finished really, really poorly. Is Caleb Williams the most disappointing, underachieving player in the history of college football? He never won a championship of any kind. His biggest victory was against Texas in his freshman year at OU. He won one bowl game coached by Bob Stoops. Be a great trivia question someday.
He didn't win a single big game in his career.
He didn't win any real big
Yeah,
game.
and you can't even count the Texas game as a big game. Texas was a lower ranked team, and it was a massive emotional comeback win. So, I don't know if I could say he's the most disappointing player per se.
I mean, the most disappointing performance in terms of underachievement.
in terms of exactly.
Yeah, but I don't put that on him. I put it on his horrible defense and offensive line.
But I mean, even Caleb, though, we were talking about it before the pod. Even Caleb has not been the same guy the past 6 weeks.
Last 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah, definitely last 2 weeks. But ever since that Notre Dame game where he threw those interceptions, those 3 interceptions, and he just does not look, which is interesting. When the going gets tough, how do you respond? I don't think he responded very well. He responded by crying, and what's that?
When the going gets tough, you paint your nails.
Yeah,
and maybe cry.
And cry a little bit,
yeah.
and you always have your mother, I guess. Well, some of us do, but I don't know. I agree on both accounts. In terms of his achievements, very, very disappointing, especially with what we perceive to be a generational talent. And
had he stayed at Oklahoma,
who knows what
he may be looking
right
at
now.
a second Heisman right now, and a
definitely a
playoff
berth with
run.
Not with that offensive coordinator, he's not.
But, and to Lucas, to your point, I think a lot of it is detriment to the coaching staff and to Lincoln himself.
Yeah, so I think that's the other underachiever is Lincoln Riley. Look at how little he's actually achieved for as much as he's had to work with, and as much as it seems like he thinks of himself and what others have thought of him in terms of what he's being able to earn as a coach. So where will Lincoln Riley go, and when will he go there?
I don't know. That's a midweek pod. It's not a post-game pod to me. I don't want to think about them. Who cares?
Well, then be prepared on the midweek to answer the question.
Okay.
If he'll be the coach at USC in August.
Okay.
I say yes. And if not, where do you think he'll go? And what type of a job he would actually leave for? And one of the things to think about, which is something we talked about on the prior midweek pod that I think is interesting, that we don't know the answer to, but what is his buyout? And we have to think his buyout is pretty sizable. So whoever wants him has got to pay up for that, among other things. But
I had a listener question.
Oh, yeah,
for
let's
the
go.
post game, and it is, what can we possibly do at kicker with 2 games left this season, maybe 3? Is there really nobody better on campus that could help this team out?
Not even that. Gavin Marshall sitting in the wings, does he suck that bad?
I mean, he must.
Because the missed field goal today, I don't give a crap of how bad the field was, and I think we said Schmidt slipped on the kick out of bounds. Regardless,
he's 24 of 36 for his career.
He's bad.
That's not good enough.
He's bad
at a top tier university. It's just not.
So, and I respect Venables for the amount that he has gone to bat for him, but at some point that doesn't mean anything. At some point, you don't have a kicker who can deliver when he needs to deliver, and can kick field goals when you need points. It's not like he's missing field goals with us up, by 2 or 3 scores. He's missing field goals in critical situations.
And chip shots.
Chip shots.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing difficult about that kick today is that it was not in the middle of the hashes.
Yep.
And any Division I college kicker should be expected to make that field goal.
Well, I'll tell you what we
Any
can.
high school kicker
The
should.
question was what we can do or what we will do.
Well, I know what we will do, and that's nothing whatsoever. It will
Yeah, the
change.
answer is nothing. We
What-
will not do
what
anything
could you
different.
actually do?
Well, I think you could look to see who is actually able to kick a ball on your team
Yeah.
and give them a shot at it, especially if we get into a situation where we are up by a nice margin against TCU. Roll somebody else out there and see what they can do in a real game time situation.
I saw an NFL running back kick field goal and an extra point 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week, I can't remember, because the kicker got hurt.
Yeah.
And we're talking a running back. Running back.
Well, you're not going to do that, and you're not going to do a open tryouts with 1 game left in the season.
Right.
What you might do is go for it on 4th down a lot more and have the mindset that we are going to have to go for it. Therefore, you change the scheme of your offense knowing you have 4 downs, not 3. And so that opens up opportunities, especially if the other team doesn't know that that's your game plan, that you'll be able to run the ball at times they don't think you'll run the ball, like, say, 3rd and 8, and you'll be able to be more aggressive in the right situation at times when they won't expect it.
I do have
so I think that's what you do.
Special teams props today. We had a fake punt that was successful
It was well executed.
up until they decided to call a pass interference on 2 guys that were blocking each other, essentially.
Basically engaged, and from what we saw, it looked like for sure the defensive player engaged the offensive player first.
Because he's expecting to be blocking the
Blocking
gunner.
all the way.
Yeah.
And so maybe the offensive player could have done more to free himself, but he didn't. So I get from that standpoint how it would be potentially a pass interference. But the idea that that is all him, you're just obviously not seeing the entire play, and it's bad luck on OU's part that the end of that play looked like pass interference on OU, where the beginning of that play shows that it's a completely different situation.
And then they even go to the rules expert, and essentially he says, this is unusual. You pretty much never call this. Both players are doing the same thing to each other. So, I mean, it was just a BS call.
I want to make one more point on the kicker situation. In football and in any competitive sport, if you don't play well or perform well in the tasks and in the job that you're supposed to do, should be a next man up mentality.
Yes.
And kickers should not be exempt from that.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he has shown game in and game out in his entire career that he cannot be consistent. So I don't know why we're not giving someone else the opportunity to earn the job. So
That's a great
I think
point.
That's really frustrating.
It's something they preach, but they don't practice it.
Yeah.
And they don't practice it in quite a few positions, but including and maybe especially at a position like that at kicker that seems to be almost a forgotten part of the game. You absolutely have to have that mentality.
And we give too much. I know it plays a role, especially in that position, but I think there's way too much grace given from the mental aspect and maintaining this mentality with your kicker. It'd be different if it was a kick here or a kick there. When we can't confidently say that our guy's going to be able to hit a field goal, I don't know what else we're supposed to do.
Of any kind.
Like, just put someone else in there. That's what we can do, is just put someone else in there and give them an opportunity.
Very frustrating. Good listener question. I think it gets to the heart of so many issues. It's not just in the kicking game that we have these woes. It's in a lot of positions where we're just not making great decisions in terms of personnel with coaching. It's frustrating to have such a downer post game in a game following a game we won.
It's the same damn story for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks since we started this podcast, and
no, it's us.
yeah,
I know.
right. We're shutting it down, guys. No,
You're welcome.
I know we have to talk about a lot of doom and gloom, even in winning situations, but the product that we're seeing on the field is not worthy of the praise that we want to be able to give.
Yeah, that's really true. We're looking for higher levels of excellence. We are 9-2, but we're a disappointing 9-2. We didn't have to be in this position and call it disappointing, and it's really disappointing because we've shown there's a level of expectation that was higher than we necessarily had coming into the season. But they should embrace that, and I don't think they would shy away from it. I'm almost certain Brent Venables wouldn't shy away from it. He wants and expects excellence, and so when you get better, your expectations rise. But they have to rise, and now you have to go meet those higher expectations, and we're not doing that. Very frustrating. We'll see what we are able to do against TCU. We'll see.
Black Friday.
Black Friday game, early morning. So look at it this way. There's a chance that 1, 2, 3, 4 games to end the season and in this complete season will be 11 o'clock kickoffs, local time for us. That is, if we get to the Big 12 title, and depending on what bowl game we get into, we could get into one of those 11 a.m. kickoffs. We might get a bowl game that's a nighttime, which it'll be interesting to see how well we play. More than likely, but such a disappointing situation to be in a position like we're in and have to do things like play these 11 a.m. kickoffs. And you know the cure for that? Going to the SEC, getting out of this conference.
Yep. We're almost there.
We won today. It was not pretty, but it was effective. We are 9-2. We have some goals in front of us that are still achievable. What else do you guys have to add to that or subtract?
I just want to finish the season strong, and I don't have a lot of confidence it's going to be any sort of dominating performance. But as we've said time and time again, we are the first people who want to be proved wrong in that scenario. So maybe we break out the home playbook that we used last week against TCU, and they come out, they dominate, and we go into hopefully what is a conference championship game.
No more true road games left for the Sooners, no matter what happens. Probably playing against marginally favorable to favorable crowds in the championship if we get there, and in the bowl game. We'll see what we can put together and see if we can make the season one that we remember as something we built upon to get to the next level. I'm fairly confident of that. This is going to be a real critical week to see what we can do with whatever the situation is with Dylan Gabriel. The Jackson Arnold show come Friday, or is it the Dylan Gabriel finale at OU? ... Who knows, if to be continued.
We may know something by our midweek pod.
We probably will know something there, and we'll have more to talk about as far as that goes. Thanks, as always, to our post-game sponsor, Tobacco Exchange. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. They have great discounts, great selection there at 3 metro locations. Anything else before the midweek pod coming up? All right, guys. Well, Boomer.
Sooner.